Welcome back, everybody, to another Alternative Cycling Network show. I'm Russ, and we've got Eric from Spindat and Mike from Locked In. And this is where we just nerd out on bikes. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Nice. You guys may have noticed we've got a fancy new logo here on the upper right. And again, big thank you to Matt Reynolds. Matt's in your hometown, right, Eric?
He is, yep.
Have you
Yep.
seen him since he submitted the logo?
Well, you're not see anybody.
Oh, that's true.
COVID.
From 6 feet away, he gave him a hug.
Right.
6 feet away,
Just
he
give him a
hug.
give him
So,
a thumbs
no, I
up from
haven't.
6 feet away.
I haven't. But I think like Matt was originally talking to me about it, and then he realized that I'm the least hardworking out of the three people in the group. And he's like, okay, all my efforts now need to go to you, Russ.
Right, for sure.
He's like, okay, yeah, Eric is as useless as like he is like businessman or communicator.
Nice.
Awesome.
So we got a
good.
brand new logo, and if you guys can't tell what it is, it's kind of small on the upper right corner, but it's a fist raised, holding 3 zip ties, which is symbolic of the 3 of us because I don't know, you guys
We're
should have
barely
seen-
held together.
Right. You guys should have been in here about half an hour ago when we were trying to figure out all the audio visual problems. So we've got a new logo. Once again, big thanks to Matt Reynolds. I'm going to post his information in the description after the show. But other big news is we have actually decided to start a new YouTube channel just for this show. So it's on neutral territory. We can all contribute beyond just the live stream, some original content, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, totally. We're committing here. Yeah.
I mean, it seems as if, you guys enjoy it. We enjoy making it because it gives us, once a week a chance to shoot the breeze and then kind of commiserate about being small bike YouTubers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if you can do us the solid of subscribing to the new channel, it should be the first link in the description below. I think we'll do maybe 1 or 2 more live streams on Path Less Pedaled, and after that, we're going to be streaming exclusively from the new channel and really try to build that up and make it its own entity.
We're gonna leave the nest.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, I'm scared. I
That's
can't
it.
fly.
Not wrong.
Starting from 0. I mean,
Yeah.
if you guys feel bad about being a small YouTuber, you should check out the analytics of that one.
Yeah, painful.
We have 2 subscribers, and it's me and Eric.
Right.
And I haven't subscribed yet.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Damn it,
Okay,
Eric.
it's me and Russ.
Right. That's it.
I just want to give it a chance, see if it'll make it.
So screwed. Okay. So the main topic of today's video, aside from announcing the new channel, is we're going to give you our collective tips in how to choose a new gravel bike. Gravel is the new thing. People are all getting up in the grav. And I think a couple of years ago, the selection for a gravel bike was very small and narrow. And now every brand has a gravel bike, multiple gravel bikes, and they range, just a gamut of price points. So our goal for this video is to really help you navigate that purchasing process. And we're going to give you our 4 tips. And I'm going to kick it off by suggesting that the first thing you want to ask yourself before you buy a gravel bike is how you plan to use it. Because that's really going to dictate the other things that we're going to talk down the line. And by that, I mean, are you more interested in gravel racing, the performance end of gravel, or the more chill party pace, go out and explore end of gravel? Because the geometries that, we'll talk about that more a little bit later, really do kind of split right there, as well as the functionality of the bike, the mounts it has or the lack of mounts. What do you guys think about that as a first tip?
I would agree. Like, to a point, because, and the only caveat being there is that everybody's first bike, whether it's 6 months or a year after, ends up being the wrong one. Like, you do, like, you ride it and you're like, geez, I guess I really do love being on the road. I do love hammering out the miles. I wasn't going to be as adventurous as I thought. Mm-hmm. And, like, you bought an A-wall and you're like, like, I wanted something sportier. So, like, certainly you need to consider what you think you're going to want at first because otherwise you're not going to ride it. But maybe don't get too caught up in that thought as well, because
you don't want to be locked in for no pun intended.
That's the name.
Let's segue that into yeah, exactly.
So Mike, what do you think? Initial buying process, what should someone ask themselves?
I think for me, I always like to buy future-proof bikes. So that means if you're coming from road and you're trying to get into gravel and you really are an aggressive road rider, or let's say you ride an endurance road bike, those characteristics are going to translate into gravel. So the aggressive road rider, they're going to prefer more cyclocross bikes, I think, as far as positioning wise with tire clearance. The guy that's coming off of a Gran Fondo or Sportif or endurance bike is going to prefer the gravel geometry because he wants more tire. So I think realistically, your background is going to kind of delineate what you're going to want. And taking out the road racer or road biker, if you're a hybrid guy, do a gravel bike. Like that's going to be super upright compared. So I think finding whatever you like currently, you can find a like in the gravel segment, because as we kind of briefly all talked about, there is the race version, there is the endurance version, and then there's the wacky. But like you can find your niche in that, depending on whatever you currently like, because I think that's going to be the easiest way to translate your transition from whatever you're at into a gravel segment, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty wild that, just a couple years ago, there was just gravel and it was this monolithic category. And now we've got aero gravel, race gravel, adventure gravel. Yeah.
Monster. I don't know if I didn't invent it, but like the monster gravel, like that's a thing. Like it's so many diverges. Too many different things of different categories now that like bike packing is almost its own category, but it isn't a category. It's just mounting options,
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like even within bike packing, you can get granular. There's the people that race stuff like Tour Divide, so their stuff is super svelte and dialed. And then there's people that are just doing the overnighters or just a little bit more casual. So, fascinating times. So, first point was, ask yourself, realistically to some extent, how you want to use the bike. And Eric suggested, leave some room, some margin of error, because your expectations may change.
And I think they will. Like, I really do think they would. Like, I remember spending a lot of time being worried about what position I might be in a year. Like so much so that like you waste, like I hated at the shop when people wasted an entire riding season, like a summer, like going out and testing bikes. And they're like, geez, I really do like this one. I'm like, buy it. Like buy this one. They're like, well, it's just that other one at the Giant store.
The damn colorway.
Yeah. Or colorway, or, the amount of times that I've talked people into finally taking the plunge to be able to go ride, a lot of times has been over the way a bike looks. And people do I found a lot of people got very self-conscious about making a bike purchase decision in such a like vain way, like using vanity to do it.
It's important though.
I think it's a huge thing. Like if you're not thinking about that bike all the time, and you're like, man, I want to go ride that. Like I want like who wants to ride a bike they think looks stupid?
Right.
Like,
or if you live in a small apartment, like we've got bike here and bike here, you're staring at it and you're not riding, and you better
like I have my bike's right there.
Right.
That's it. It's right there.
I like that. Right.
Yeah. Like it looks great. Yeah.
And like, the, like, I'm sure we'll get to cost, but like, if we're talking, if you're looking at a Sora equipped or like a Tiagra equipped, Claris, whatever equipped bike, there's a lot in that market segment, and a lot of them do sit around that like $850 US to like $1,100, and like, I know what it's like to have a budget of only $850, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to be able to go up to 1,100, even though that's the bike I want. But if you do have that wiggle room, you like that $1,100 bike way more and you're going to ride it way more, then that's the one you should go with. Like, maybe price matters. But
yeah, I'm of the kind of mindset that, buy it right once the first time. If you can stretch your budget and get it so you don't buy your second choice and just be plagued with existential doubt for, the rest of your life about what if,
Yeah, I tell people, like, when I worked at a manager's shop, I told people it's kind of like buying a computer. It's like the best example I could give that's like non-bicycle, especially for new riders. Like, you buy a computer, if you buy one that's like decent right now, it's going to be outdated in 3 months. You buy a bike that's decent to good now, it's probably going to last you a year or two at minimum. You buy the Tiagra 105 equipped bike or the SRAM like Apex or Rival bike, that's probably going to last you quite a bit for very little money up front. That's really where I think the value goes exponentially, because, and I tell everyone else, it's like, oh, well, I'll just upgrade it later. Well, the upgrade cost is going to cost you exponentially more, because obviously this company's buying these parts at bulk. Like anything else you buy at Costco, you're getting a better deal, and that's where it goes into the bicycle cost. So like, you can buy more for less initially than you will later.
Yeah, I think when I was a bike noob, I was stunned at that math. That if I were to upgrade a pre-existing bike to what a new bike is spec'd, I just couldn't make that same price point that they were doing.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Sure. Yeah,
sure.
It's funny, in theory, I agree with all this. In practice, I never do it.
You never upgrade?
Well, no, I always upgrade. Like, I always buy the bike that I have the money for, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ride. Like, you say buy it right or buy it twice. I say get it running, don't get it right. That's my, like, I think if you can put something together to ride it right away, like, you do have to like it. There's a balance there. Like,
for sure.
You can always try and make something you like. You can't ride nothing.
Right. But also too, I think there's the slight caveat of, you also have to have knowledge of what will work upgrading.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I have friends of mine that will hit me up like, hey man, I just bought this. I'm like, dude, return it. That will not work on your bike.
Why did
like, that will not work.
Yeah.
Like, that is the problem where, like, there's so much, even what we see as simple, it's this plethora of compatibility that we are trying to fight against. Because, I mean, Russ, you talk about on your channel, and Eric, you do too, like, we all love 10-speed when SRAM used to work with mountain stuff. Like, that was awesome, and they don't anymore. And I told the same thing when I was at Grinduro talking to SRAM directly. Like, come on, man, let's do this. But that's the problem with, you have to know so much to buy used or buy secondhand, and what works and what different and what the spacing is and all this kind of stuff, that it can be possible, but you have to have this level of experience or knowledge to make it financially, like, smart, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. And it also takes knowledge to know, like, when a bike is a good deal. Like, there's some things you can compromise on, but still it's not going to be a big deal down the road. Whereas it's a good price now, but it's because, that maybe the frame sucks, and that's something that you can't just upgrade down the road. So it does take a bit of knowledge to figure out what is, a good upgradable bike.
Yeah. And it's always a sin when people like us do start to talk about this, because we always do tend to go down this rabbit hole of, like, here's all these interesting ideas that wouldn't be intimidating, and then you keep talking and you're like, but really this is what you should do. And if anybody was watching this to be like, how do you buy a gravel bike? We just scared them again, right?
Sorry, guys.
Like, so I always try and think, like, think about what you want to do with the bike. Don't think about it too much. Like, find the one you like. Probably the biggest consideration, if you're going to be riding off road, the most comfortable, non-gimmicky thing that you're going to look at is tires and what you can fit in for tire. And beyond,
good segue into our second point.
Oh, look at this!
I'm
Look at this
I'm a
guy.
segue king.
Look at Eric. Look at Eric. Yeah.
Teeing it up.
And just like find a bike you like the look of, that excites you to ride, that you can afford. Certainly, you're not going to know if you're going to want to go race cross, like, especially if you're new. Like, it's
not great. It's not great. It sucks. It's hard.
it's not sucky.
So
But-
it sounds like what you're saying is don't get analysis paralysis. There's
Yes.
don't get too
have an
bought into
idea.
the idea of like the perfect bike, and get something that's gonna mostly work, because the most important thing is to ride it now and have that experience.
You need to find out what you want to do. Like, you're not gonna know by riding bikes around in parking lots. It's just it's a terrible way to test ride bikes.
And that's actually a good point. Like, if you're not sure you're going to be super into gravel, it's like maybe you just get a really cheap one and see if it's even kind of feasible. Me, that's kind of been my approach with mountain biking. It's
for sure.
I think I might be into it, but like a nice mountain bike is really expensive.
Yes.
So just to kind of test the waters, I'll go cheap first.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's the thing with gravel too. It's like you can ride a gravel bike for a cross race. You can ride a cross bike for a gravel race. It's just they're different segments. But I think for most people, it really depends on what you want to use it for, because you might be gravel curious, cross curious, and you might do a cross race, a gravel fondo or
event
or just like you ride on some rocks once, like it could be it. And you have to realistically be, it's like buying a truck too. It's like, realistically, what are you going to use it for? What is your area that you're in? Is it mostly unpaved? Okay, well then this bike makes sense. If you're new into riding, I always say go more relaxed, and see what you're going to use it for most of the year. When I sold mountain bikes, I would tell people like, oh, like, man, I go to Big Bear like 3-4 times a year. I want a downhill bike. Okay, well, do you ride mountain but like do you ride mountain like regularly? Oh yeah, well, I ride locally as much as I can, like 2-3 times a week. Well, buy a bike for that and go rent the bike for when you go downhilling, because like that's a better value. You're gonna, so that's the thing. Buy the bike. For me, my advice is buy the bike that's gonna suit your local terrain that you're gonna ride most. Yeah. And then if you want to experiment, go rent or do whatever demo somewhere else, or do that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Good point. We're 15 minutes in, and all the social media gurus say this is the perfect time to ask people to give a thumbs up if you like the video. And if you missed the opening, we've actually started a brand new channel for ACN that we're going to start doing live streams solely off of. So please subscribe to that. It's going to be the first link in the description below. Help us get to, 1,000, so we can start making all those YouTube dollars really quickly.
That's it. I think somebody said we had 38 like 10 minutes ago. So
seriously?
We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, we're double digits, boys. Double digits.
That's crazy.
Baller. You guys are awesome.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so
it's us and Joe Rogan. No big deal.
Oh.
All right. So on to our second point after trying to figure out how you're going to use it. And that's one of the most important things about the gravel bike, and I think it really defines it different from a road bike, and that is tire and tire clearance. Who wants to take the lead on this one? Okay, Mike.
So for me, I think more is better. I think the reason why is because when I built what I call the gravel bike on my channel, it was an all steel custom bike. Gravel was like a 35C tire.
The good old days.
Yeah, no, I built an entire bike around that size. I mean, and now it's my all-road bike, and I feel bad retitling the whole series, because to me, it was a gravel bike at the time. I ordered up gravel. But I think now, with tire sizes being it's still just the wild, wild west with what's going to clear on a gravel bike. I always say the bigger the better, because...
So what's the size? Like
for me, the current bike build I just finished was 700 by 50C, because I think that's the biggest you're going to go on 700.
Okay.
And then mine clears a stated 650 by 2.1. I have a 2.2 on there. I live in California, so the mud is not that big of a deal. I think that's the kind of breaking point for both tire sizes. Because a 700 by 50 is essentially a 29er by 2.0, like 2.05 or something like that.
Mhm.
I think those are the two tire sizes where the cutoff is weight and handling and capability. If you need more than a 2.2 650, you're probably going to need suspension. And if you need more than a 2.0 29, you're probably going to need suspension in some capacity, either front, rear, or both, or some combination of the two. So I think that having the capability to run whatever tire you want. So if you still want to run a 45 700 and you have a frame that clears a 650 by 50, you're still good, and you have more mud clearance. So I think buying something that goes a little bit beyond what you think you need is going to be beneficial for the future, because event-wise, like, everything's getting crazier. Like, I just signed up for Grinduro of this year, and it's in Mount Shasta. Granted, it's pending, but last year was nuts in Quincy, and Mount Shasta I've heard is worse. So I sized up a tire size just to be safe, because I have no idea what's going to happen. So I think gravel races are going to get gnarlier, unfortunately, because of the racer aspect. But it's like, I think a lot of gravel tires or small size 650s and 29er tires are now going to get rebranded in this next year to a gravel tire. In my opinion, because it's the weird, like, it's too small for a mountain bike, and like we still have stock of it, and it's just going to get rebranded as like, oh, this is the new gravel tire.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when like the year we started training for Dirty Kansas,
exactly.
I think the industry had settled on like 40 millimeters was 40 to 45 was like the ideal tire clearance that people were designing around. But what we found was, or what we heard on the ground was, a lot of people were actually running salsa cutthroats for DK for that added clearance. And that tire, I think it ships with like a 2.3 with a capacity up to 2.4.
Depending on the size of the frame,
Yeah, so they rode that. They didn't run a 2+ tire. They ran like a 45, but with the thinking ahead of the potential for mud clearance. It's just, if you don't have the clearances, you're just like stopped dead in your tracks there.
Right.
Exactly.
That's like that's very cyclocross mentality, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at, actually, cross bikes seem to have reined in a little bit. Like I see most now, if there's anything that cross bikes have really done, or gravel bikes have done for cross bikes, it's allow them to go back to
just being cross bikes,
straight up race bikes. Race oriented bikes. And I remember being very excited about that. And the clearances seem to like shrink down a little bit. Like if you look at the new Specialized Crux, it looks like a road bike, like with its like flat top tube, and I think it has less clearance than the Crux I have. But anyway, I personally, like, I have 45s on my Poseidon. I think they're too big. Maybe it's just for the places I ride, and like I do spend a fair amount of time on asphalt with it. And of course, maybe I do have a little bit of like supple, fragile tires I have very bad luck with. And while the the Riddlers are hardly the most supple tire you can get, I tend to find all the sharpest rocks that are like, here's my tire, here's where it is, and it's like, and
here's Eric,
and I'm like, man, I just bought this tire. Like, can someone not like? Can this just?
So Caesar here asked, doesn't the UCI limits the size to cross tires to? I think it's 33.3.
No, it's 33.
33, yeah. And they do measure. Like, I've been to some national events, and like some usually it's like a random volunteer who doesn't really look like a cyclist person at all, and they're like, you over here, and you're like,
calipers.
No, it's like it's a piece of
wood, basically
wood or plexiglass, and they just like, if it'll
if
shove
it
on,
fit between it, you're out.
You guys want to know a super pro tip way to get mud off your tires if it's super muddy? I heard this
Go
on
for
a live stream from that our friends at Swift Industries did.
Can
And
I
it's a trick
guess
that's-
first?
With sure.
I think it's probably riding over an empty Coke can and having it fold onto the tire, come up onto the fork, and just rub all the mud off.
No, it's not that.
I was gonna say 2 zip-tied toothbrushes. That was my guess. No.
Nope. So this is
Okay.
a trick that Sarah Swallow employs when she does her far off adventures and things get muddy. Floss.
Okay.
Floss.
Wow.
Like
You carry some floss and you can cut right through it when it's still soft. And I
right.
imagine like when you're making like a clay pot or something, that's the same technique that they use. So, and it's a little bit, it's ultra light. It's lighter than a stick, and it can
Right.
really get into those places. So carry some floss with you next time.
Sure.
Wow.
All right.
And
Not
Angela
the
tells
cheap
me
kind.
Angela tells me to floss all the time. I still don't. So
Does she recommend any certain brand or flavor? Are we talking like like
Mint.
spearmint, cuts
Mint.
better, mint? Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I think peppermint works best.
Yeah, I
It's
would say.
something
Sounds
something
good.
with the clay, like the
Yeah.
acidity, the pH. The pH is
it
pH
cuts the
balance.
mud right off.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Sounds good.
But yeah, to get back to so the cross thing is a good the cross thing's a you are limited. That is a nice part about cyclocross is there's no thought. It's like, yeah, no, if it's over 33 you can't race, but obviously the races are quite a bit different.
You can race. It just you can't do a UCI race.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the
you
deal.
can race local races and
Yeah.
like even our local series, because we do get UCI points for it, they won't register you. Like you're not allowed.
Right.
You can go out. You're basically going for a bike ride with everybody,
Yeah.
but no UCI points allowed.
Yeah. For at least in California, we have a SoCal cyclocross series. As long like if you're doing a non-UCI race, you can race whatever size tire. I ran
Yeah.
42 nanos for my cross season that I did well on.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's only if you're doing a UCI points race, which was, I want to say, maybe a third of those races.
Yeah.
And then you had to race in those categories as well. So you could still do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, like there's always the party race that,
Yeah,
that no one
exactly.
really cares about. Those,
Yeah.
all right.
lately,
so I'm going to reel us back to tires.
yeah, sorry.
So as wide as you can get, but okay,
Yep.
so I would say with a caveat in terms of the bike design, which would be the next tip to consider, is that I find that if a bike, generally bikes are designed around kind of a specific tire size, right? The designer engineer thinks, okay, 700 by 40, that's a sweet spot for this bike, and they're going to adjust the bottom bracket height so you're not smacking rocks and everything. So the only caveat is if you get a bike that's designed with too big of a tire and you run, too small of a tire, that could cause issues. What do you guys think of that?
I think if you change wheel sizes, that it'll cause issues.
Yeah.
But I maybe it would change the handling or the way the riding characteristics a little bit, not enough that like a hack like me would ever notice. Like
I would know this. I'd be like,
yeah,
the trail has changed by 5 millimeters.
These are 5 mil different. Something's wrong. And also,
Well,
I think you would also adjust your tire pressure accordingly as well. So the sag that you might have with a 45 or a 50, you're probably not going to have that same level of comfort for less rim strikes with like say a 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of, so like what we did with the Cutthroat, I think it shipped with 2.2s and we ran like 45s.
Mhm.
And that was actually a considerable drop. I'd say almost
that's
like
a 1.8 or something like that.
Yeah. And so you can do that, but within reason.
Mhm.
It'll probably be a bad idea to put like 700 by 28s on the Cutthroat,
Actually, you know what? That's like that was always like the selling feature of gravel bikes was like, well, you can put the smaller road tires on them, and for the longest time, I think they actually pulled them off pretty good. But now, because of the huge clearances and like the expected big tire sizes, they look a little dorky with like those smaller tires. And bottom brackets are very low, so you're right. It would be, you're talking almost an inch at that point to drop down. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think it depends on the bike. I think that's really where like the industry differs.
Mhm.
So for mine, like, yeah, if I run 700 by 50s, like I have short legs for my height. I'm probably living with like a 30.5 inseam. So like I don't got a whole lot of leg. So it is tall. On a 60 by 2.2, which is not a whole lot shorter, it's like perfect as far as standover height. Pedal strike isn't a big issue, but yeah, if I were to run a 47 on certain parts where there's ruts or logs, I might hit trying to pedal over stuff.
Right.
So I think that's really where it depends on, again, your desired tire size. Because for most guys who are running road, a 62 by 47 is massive. And I used to come from road, so I know like that used to feel big. Now I'm like, 2.2. I'm like, yeah, that'll be good. Like, you know, like I think that's really where you start to adjust it, because I have a buddy of mine, he rides 2.0s, but he's shorter. So like his toe overlap is better. His clearance essentially over stuff is probably about the same as mine because of the height difference in the frame and bottom bracket height. So it really depends on your rider height, and then your frame clearance, because it's kind of coupled together. Because he could ride the same tires I ride and get huge clearance, but he might be hitting his foot on the tire every single time he turns. So I think there's always that happy medium, depending, especially if you're a shorter rider.
Yeah. All right. So we did that thing again where we made a simple point very complicated.
That's why you watch it.
Yeah.
That's why you watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the big level point is, when choosing a gravel bike, pick as big of a tire as you think you might use and clearance to spare, and know that you'll have some wiggle room.
Right.
Handling may change as you use a smaller tire or larger tire. I think ultimately you'll adapt. You have to be super anal. Like I feel like I'd be pretty anal. I could pick it out and be whiny about it for a couple rides, but ultimately I'd adapt. So there would be some differences, but you're not going to die.
There's no dying involved with tire sizing. But I think I would.
But don't say that, because ACN does not have that kind of like we don't have that insurance like umbrella
we don't
yet.
have that
so,
GCN insurance money. So I take that back. You may die.
Yeah, exactly. You may die.
Probably you might die. Whatever.
The non-disclosure agreement is the second link under the ACN YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you should just Zwift. That's
there you go.
Don't even go outside. It's hot. I got sunburnt the other day. People commented about it. Yeah. I think the simple answer is as big a tire as you feel you can handle for your easiest sections, and then the biggest tire that will fit. Go for the frame that will fit the biggest. I think is going to be the best place to go. There's no denying bigger tire, much more comfortable. Simply put, more comfortable, more compliant. It
Supple,
just is. It is. Yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Like it just is. And I notice it when I jump from bike to bike. That if there is I don't notice a lot, but when I jump from even my track lacrosse bike to the Poseidon with the 45s on it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is so plush.
Yeah. Cool. So that brings us to our third point, which is kind of encompasses several things, and that's this notion of ride feel. Who wants to take this on? Or do you want me to tee it up more?
Yeah, tee it up. So
here, come on, give us a little extra.
If we start with something, we'll tangentially end up somewhere else.
Yeah.
So you guys have to know, we all met a half an hour early to get our talking points, and we spent about 20 minutes of that dealing with AV issues, and then 10 minutes of coming up with the talking points. Okay, so ride feel. So in terms of ride feel, I think what I'm getting at is ultimately the sense of raciness, stability. So part of that is geometry, but also fit. Do you want a more aggressive fit or something more upright? And that's kind of those things you have to make a decision basically at the beginning, because it's you can't change it, right?
There is the changes in parts that you can make, but a lot of them are compromises at one point or another.
I'll volunteer for that then.
Okay.
So for everybody, I have a body geometry fit background. So that specializes fit philosophy, which I really like because unlike Guru and Retool, it really focuses on the person. So I fitted 75-year-old ladies who wanted a road race or road ride to guys who were low 20s, fit as hell, and did yoga 7 days a week. So the big thing for me was finding a bike that's comfortable, because if you're comfortable, you're going to make power. That's it. It's a byproduct of comfort, in my opinion. So I think for this is right feel is going to be based on what you're eventually it all ties together what we've been talking about, what you really are looking for. In my opinion, based on my ride history, steel is going to ride really well. It's going to be very comfortable. So your long distance or guys who aren't caring about time frame and want to enjoy the ride, steel is going to be where it's at. Aluminum is going to be the kind of middle road. It's going to be affordable. Carbon is going to be a little more expensive. You can depending on the carbon frame, get kind of both ride characteristics. At the end of the day, what you're really looking for is your end result. For me, at this point, I'm going to do Grinduro and do a gravel race. But every other day of the week and year, I'm going to be looking for oh man, this is a cool ride. I just want to go see the views or go experience something new.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Okay.
If someone's looking at a geometry chart, let's say noob looking at a geometry chart, what are the indicators that it's going to be a more upright, comfortable bike? Is there anything
So I think for me, it's going to be stack height, and I think is the easiest thing to look at. If you really are you coming off of a road bike or a cross bike or anything else, look at the stack height, because that essentially for you, if it's a similar effective top tube, and I don't want to get too technical, but I'm just trying to limit it. Effective top tube, let's say, is the same, but the stack height, let's say, is 10, 20 mil, 30 mil taller. That means that if you have any spacers underneath your stem currently, that difference in space is going to go away. So for me, for numbers sake, I had a 120 mil head tube with about 15, 20 millimeters of spacers on my TCX. On my Cobalt, that all went away with the stack height because the head tube was so much taller and the stack height was taller. So my Cobalt is slammed, and the saddle to bar drop number is cut in half. So I went from 7 centimeters to about 4.5. So again, more comfortable. So I'm now in the drops way more often. And for descending on most gravel bikes, you're going to get more leverage no matter what in a drop position. But in my old cross bike, that was at the extreme end of my fit. So now it's middle ground to where I really enjoy it and I can really leverage the bike, handle the bike, and get over more rough terrain. So not wanting to really get into geo, look at the stack height. That is going to differentiate where you're at, especially if you're on road or endurance, to gravel.
So maybe what someone can do is if they know the geometry numbers of the current bike that they ride and they're like, oh, I want this to be more comfortable, they can look at the current stack height number and maybe ideally find something a little bit taller.
Taller. So bigger number. Don't look at taller. It's just bigger number. The taller it is the difference. So if you want to take a tape measure, the easiest thing to do is measure it from the bottom of the head tube to underneath your stem. And let's say that is 140, and your new bike, the head tube distance or the stack is going to be the same. That means that you can run it either slammed, or if you want to run more comfort because you're uncomfortable on your current bike, it means you can run the same amount of stack above it and be that much taller.
Right.
I'm just trying to simplify it. I think is the best way to explain it.
So stack's the number to look at. What else? What else determines ride feel? I'm gonna jump in and say to some extent, or to the overall bike geometry determines how racy or stable it's going to feel. And a big part of that I talk a lot about on my channel is chainstay length. The longer the chainstay, the more stable it is going to be. It's going to be descending. You just get tossed around a lot less. And I would say racy bikes tend to be sub 430, and your more stable bike is going to be 430, 450 in the rear. And another number to look at is the trail number. That's not often listed on a geo chart, but you can calculate it on a trail calculator website. You put in the head tube angle, tire diameter, and fork offset. That gives you a trail number. And if the trail number is 60, that's typically the trail of an endurance road bike. And in point of reference, mountain bikes are usually 80 to 100, and a gravel bike, something that's going to descend well on rough terrain, you don't get tossed around so much. You're looking for a trail in the upper 60s, mid 70s, and that's generally good balance. That's where I find a fair number of gravel bikes landing these days. So,
yeah.
Eric,
when I worked at the shop, I used to look at these numbers a lot more.
Yeah.
Because we're always looking at new bikes, and we would just nerd out about the stuff so much. So almost a little bit rusty on it. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but yeah, I mean, those would be the two places I would kind of look. Maybe seat tube angle a little bit.
Yeah.
You see bikes with smaller seat tube diameters from time to time to try and take advantage of the flex in the seat post, or they'll make up the difference by going a little more compact with the geometry, expecting you to run more seat posts, so you get some flex there.
Right.
Of course, that's if you're looking for a bike that does stay relatively plush under you. Of course, what Mike is talking about, that's for if you're looking for a more upright or lower racy position. Russ, what you're talking about is going to be like, how sprightly does the rear end feel, and how does it steer as it's going down a hill, or anywhere, like even on a climb. Like there's compromises everywhere, and you can always argue with yourself on the compromises on a geometry chart, and you can drive yourself nuts doing it.
You can.
Like you absolutely can. You'd be like, geez, the trail on that thing is like, God.
Yeah.
This is a struggle we live with every single day, guys.
Yeah.
Well, for the longest time, bikes were, in the rear chainstay was like 425, 430. And then there was a bike that came out with 428. It's like, ooh, what does that feel like?
Yeah, I bet that's different. Yeah,
yeah, that's
crazy.
A magical number.
Yeah.
I remember. I can't remember if it was BAUM, BAUM. Is that how you pronounce that? That company?
Yeah.
BAUM, or if it was BAUM, or who else? Who else? Speedwagon. They had done like a pretty interesting article with, it might have been Cycling Tips, talking about geometries and like how it all adapts over time. And he had mentioned something along the lines of like, I think that every road bike has had too short of chainstays, like since basically the beginning of that short chainstay design.
Right.
And it all came down to poor steel quality that was too flexy for a long chainstay, where now these days you can get away with a very sprightly, stiff, longer rear end. So why wouldn't you take that on?
Right.
And then like something along the lines of like, and I agreed with it because I love long stems, but he was like, a bike that has a shorter, for a road bike or to be on the road, he's like, the handling of a bike with whatever his magic trail number was, and a slightly shorter top tube with a longer stem, so that the leverage wasn't so intense while descending, made a much nicer steering, like front end. And it's funny because that's very road bike like talk,
Right.
where like I don't think that necessarily translates to what you would want out of a gravel bike. I think it does make more sense probably to have that more direct steering feel of a shorter stem, that is, a little more connected, especially when like you look ahead and you're like, okay, that's right there. I'm just going to get around it instead of like, the 300-meter thought where you're like, all right,
yeah.
Right.
You can see down the road.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just going to start
Little
this.
Bobby English.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I just did a live stream with Analog Cycles, and it's a
saw
bike
that,
shop
yeah.
in Vermont, and he's got a component brand called Discord, and one of their first products is like a 0 mm offset stem because they're designing a bike around it, and it's specifically a gravel bike packing bike. But I think that was a good point that you made, that up until just recently, I feel like most gravel bike design has been influenced largely by road. And now we're seeing more influence by mountain, and then it's starting to kind of shift expectations. Like the Diverge, as much as we poked fun at the fancy dad bike, it showed kind of a evolution. It wasn't
definitely
the Diverge of a couple years ago, which was more cross and road inspired. It had slacker angles in the front, a little bit longer in the rear, and I think it's the bikes are coming into their own now, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So hopefully we didn't make it too complicated. We like to state a thesis, make it complicated, and then wrap it up.
Yeah, with yeah. So what do you want out of a bike? Like, I think stability and it certainly does make sense to even in the raciest of terms, it probably does make sense to go up a little bit and come back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, and I think you would see that with most guys. There's not going to be a whole lot of times where you want to be, with a 100 mm long head tube with the stem slammed down, -17 degree.
Like deciding. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. That thing's got hydraulic brakes now, though, so it's fine.
Yeah. Well, hey,
I think that those positions work better for tarmac. But
yes,
if you're getting tossed around, that sounds painful.
Yeah, like I can do it. I do it pretty regularly, but I think half of it might be for YouTube content. 40% of it is probably because I'm not old enough to know better, and I think I still need to be cool, and the other 10% is. No, it's just a 50-50 split.
So I had a bit of a aha moment last week. So I converted my polyvalent from a drop bar to an alt bar, just to prove that I'm not a drop bar elitist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there is a curve in it though.
Right. So I got the Velo Orange granola bars, and I took it up this chunky double track that I always do the test rides on, and going down it. Usually on a drop bar bike, it's not the most comfortable thing. It's not super puckery, but it's just it's uncomfortable because it's baby heads and you're kind of surfing it, and it's a good test for low trail versus high trail. But with the converted polyvalent with the swept back alt bar, I actually found that I went down faster just because I wasn't so leveraged over the front and just a little bit more sat back in the bike, and I had less weight, so the front would kind of be a little bit loosey-goosey, but it was okay because it would kind of surf over the rough stuff. So it was a bit of a surprise. Same bike, different bar, completely different experience going down rough terrain.
I could see that. I could see myself being more comfortable going down pretty much anything on a flat bar, or even a drop bar with a shorter stem. Right. That you can get that weight back. Yeah. And allow the front wheel to see. You say surf, I say skate.
Dance.
Yeah, like Canadian, right? So,
right.
But yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I would expect that out of it. I don't know that I would draw that conclusion without being prompted on it, but to hear it, I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to prove that point on Saturday with my gravel bike. I run one rigid stem length longer for road, and then I size down for my redshift stem to like give some more compliance. And
is it 20 mil difference?
It's 10. So I do like a one, like I have the Salsa cow chipper bars currently. There's a real short reach. They're like 66 or 68 reach.
That's short.
Really short. So I have to run a kind of a long stem for those.
Right.
So those I run a 120 on my 56 for the reach that I want for road. And then for gravel, I run a 110 redshift. I have the Ride Far carbon bars coming in. Those are more like road reach with gravel drop. So those I'm going to size down again on everything.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going to try is like trying to do I'm going to make a video of like can you make a gravel bike a road bike and what kind of things I find out. We're doing a 65, 70 mile ride, 25 to 3,000 feet of climbing, something like that along the coast. So
I anticipate the end of that video to be, yes, you can do this. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey.
Should be anyway.
Yeah. You can bet via ACN Discord server. Yeah.
There you go.
You'll know. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, and that is money and budget. How much should you budget? What are some cheap ways to get into the grav? But before we go into this hot topic, again, if you're enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. Helps the channel or helps the video. But be sure to subscribe to the new ACN channel. This show is going to have its own home. Eric and Mike are going to do 5 videos a week on their own.
That's right. Every day, baby. Every day.
For 10-second videos.
We're gonna make TikToks for
every day.
Every day.
So be sure to subscribe to the new channel. Get us to 1,000 so we can start making that YouTube dollar every month.
$1. Yep. That's $150 Canadian, man.
Yeah. I thought it was 1,000 Canadian.
It changes every week.
So speaking of money, budget. So, we've been talking about what to look for in terms of a new gravel bike, and, we're well aware that that's not within the means of everybody, especially during this crazy time. And yes, there are ways to repurpose older bikes. And I would suggest that if you have a very limited budget, say $500 or less, you're better off getting a used bike and making a conversion than buying something new.
I agree.
Around that price point. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree.
Yeah.
I've developed an entire YouTube channel literally agreeing to that fact.
So what are your tips for finding a good conversion candidate?
Your dad to gravel conversion.
Yeah, dad bikes. Man, they're everywhere. You can find them everywhere in sheds. Like, go, you don't even need to go on Facebook Marketplace. It's really helpful because they're everywhere. Avoid department store bikes if you can.
Oh, please.
And why I say that is most people selling department store bikes used also think they are worth what quality they think they're worth what quality used dad bikes are worth. So they're like, okay, I got this Nakamura Iron Horse. What are other people selling their old bikes for?
Right.
And in Canada, it's 200 Canadian usually is like the sweet spot for
$5 US. So.
That's $5.
It's 100 pesos or $5 US, either one. Yeah, whatever works.
So knowing what a department store bike is helps.
So what are brands? What are specific brands that people should stay away from? Like Magna, I know is one here in the U.S.
Yeah, like Denali.
Denali, okay, but it sounds so rad, Denali.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, not GMC product though.
No.
Huffies, Mongoose.
Huffies, yeah. Department store Schwinn's, you're probably not going to want to touch too much. I'm sponsored by Schwinn on the Signature line.
Ooh,
a little different.
Look at you.
I would. So we have a store in Canada. It's a retail store called Sport Check. They have a few department store bikes. It can get it gets a little messy there because they have department store bikes, but they also have a brand deal with GT. Like they sell GTs here, and that if you wanted to buy a GT grade, you had to buy it at Sport Check. So it's you can be tricked into thinking the Nakamura or whatever from Sport Trek was good because they also have GT. So it's a little bit annoying that way. But if it's made out of, if someone can't tell you what the origins of the steel is, usually
I think and there's a lot of what I tell people is a lot of the retro brands that are current to us are what are in department stores. Nishiki, like Centuri, Huffy, some Motobicanes. Like it really depends. It's that Taiwanese brand paying that company a small royalty to put their stickers on their own bike. So they can sell them for $150, and some dad walks in and says, "Hey, I had a Nishiki back in the day. I'm gonna buy it for a kid." That is
they're playing the nostalgia card.
Yes, they totally are.
Seriously, what it is. And then in 5 or 10 years, it's gonna be completely different. But that's what it is right now. So anything that you recognize, like I would totally do a conversion, or like I've done an old retro build, an old Bridgestone RB1 road bike, killer. Quality steel road bike, did modern components on it, killer bike, loved it. One of the few bikes I wish I never sold. And there's
that was a fine, man.
No,
having a Bridgestone, that'd be cool.
No, I found a Bridgestone with Shimano 600 unbuilt for like $200.
Right.
And the frame set now is worth like $1,000 because it was like 17 pounds with like SRAM Force 10 speed on it and like whatever wheels. Like that's the thing. So now, but like I would still build a Centurion rim brake Ironman, bike like in a cool colorway like now. So those are still having their build. But if you're finding something and it's like 9-speed or up, like with like grip shifters, it's probably not going to be like what you want.
Yeah.
So it's,
but even and I guess
like a used Specialized is generally a pretty safe bet, right?
Yeah, like any. So if you're ever unsure, and like Bridgestone's a tough example because like most people wouldn't even know that they were making bikes or like. So like you would avoid those. Basically, what you're looking for is like those like, mid '90s to now hybrids. Mid '90s is kind of like there was a weird time, and I got really lucky with both of my hybrids. They both had 1 1/8 threaded forks.
Yeah.
So like pop the headset cups out, and I'm like, gotta find a 1-inch fork now. And then like I made the mistake of buying a 1-inch headset, and I went to go like put it in. I was like, dung, 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 dung. Like, what? Like I never knew that there was a 1 1/8 threaded fork. But if you're thinking about getting into it, look for bikes that are online that are still sold in bike shops. Then you're on a pretty safe bet. I think most of them, no matter how trashed they are, as long as something's not cracked, like drivetrain, if the shifters work, the cables aren't rusty, don't worry about how worn out the chain and the cassette is, because like 8-speed chains and cassettes are so cheap.
Yeah.
That like
whatever you need it for that.
Yeah. Like just bring it to a shop and get it swapped out. And then like, if you only had that $200 to spend, then certainly come watch my videos or like watch conversion videos, but don't take a bike like that apart if you can't put it back together to ride right away. Like I think most people think I'm going to take, like when I took the rock hopper apart, people were like, I don't understand why you did that. And I'm like, because I could get it to the silhouette of what I wanted and ride it. If I didn't have a chain, or if I didn't have chainring or something, I would have left it alone. But like, if you can make that step towards upgrading something that you're in love with and you want to do that too, then, take that step. It's a good thing to learn on.
So here's a question. Would people be advised to not buy a used bike with a suspension fork and just try to look for a rigid fork?
At that point, I think in that era, I mean, in my opinion,
I would kind of agree with that. And
in that era, hell no. Like you're not going to find like replacement parts or someone who is going to want to service it or will service it.
Yeah.
Like my first road bike was a Univega. Like I loved that thing. It was killer. It was like an aluminum front triangle with the steel rear, so it had the comfort but the lightweight. It was weird. But like I mean, like like that's the thing is like for mountain or anything that would be considered like a 26 cross conversion for us. Yeah, don't buy anything that's complicated. I tell everybody that same thing when they buy a new bike, like when Specialized had the Zert inserts or whatever, or the Future. It's like that's gonna go out of style, or they're not gonna make parts for that. You buy a bike that just has like bike components, like that's the bike you want, you know?
Right.
That's
Cool.
gonna make that's gonna make life the easiest. But I think probably the first thing you should do is like if you're buying a hybrid, like the hybrids that I am constantly changing around, certainly don't feel ashamed about like putting some sick tires on that bike and going and riding it. Like just ride it the way it is.
That would be the best first upgrade.
Yeah,
assuming all the shifting works and the brakes will work, go tires, splash out on the tires.
Yeah.
Even if it costs as much as the bike.
like spend your $5 on your complete bike. Man, tires will change the feel of like a crappy hybrid so much.
For sure.
Like shifting is nice. It's like it's one of those like it's nice to have something that clicks into gear like, oh, that was good. But like you get away, Russ, you have friction shifters. You know what it's like when you can miss, and you're like, oh, I gotta just shimmy that back in. But you got sick tires, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna make a video called "Budget or Baller," like where the spenders save on your bike, and I'm of the mind like get as cheap as a drivetrain that'll work and serve your needs, but
I agree with that.
But ball out on the wheels and tires.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because that's gonna be, unless you're racing and you need like super precise shifts or something, you're gonna get the most like bang for buck and performance in the wheels and tires.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's if you're gonna find a used bike. Our general tips are avoid department store bikes because they're going to be overpriced for what they are. Try to find a used bike with brands that you're already familiar with in bike shops. So Trek, Specialized, Giant, all that good stuff. And, avoid used bikes with weird proprietary components or suspension forks of an era, lefty forks especially. Just kidding.
I like that.
Hey, don't cut us out of Cannondale, bro.
Right.
Like Cannondale's watching this. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing at all.
And then so that's for the people that are on the super tight budget, and I think we framed it up as if you've got less than $500 to spend, you're better off buying used and upgrading that. Yep. Let's say someone has $500 to $1,000 to spend. Do you guys have recommendations?
I do. So mine is the Giant Revolt 2. That is a 2020 bike. That, in my opinion, it's right at $1,000. The beauty of that bike is, and I used to work at a Giant dealer, is one, the geometry is super comfortable. It clears a 700 by 45. It'll at least clear a 650 by 2.1. And it has a pretty solid drivetrain. It's got the Shimano Sora 10-speed. But the gear range and the tire selection that's already on it is pretty good. So you're going to get a 48-32 crankset, which is going to be great for climbing. Your tire size, you're going to get a 700 by 38, and it's already going to set up tubeless. So I think for me, that's going to be like kind of the best bang for the buck as far as like out of the box. And your rear cassette's going to be 1134. So you're going to get over that 1-to-1 climbing gear. And then as far as like the weights between Giant bikes that I've seen with aluminum to carbon, because Giant makes their own bikes in-house, usually the carbon to aluminum ratio is only a pound to pound and a half difference. So weight-wise, you're not going to be losing a whole lot. You're still going to get the same mounts. It's got the down tube mounts. For $1,000 bucks.
Was that retail again?
Yeah, $1,000 retail.
1,000. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any budget picks,
so I think,
Eric? Sorry.
Good.
You know what?
What's the Poseidon cost? Is that more than that?
It's $700 now. I think it's a better deal now because they've got the microshift, the new 10-speed 2x10 microshift, like Centus or whatever that's on it.
Is the 700 still with the microshift option?
Yep. It's I was talking to Lewis about it. I was like, man, that's a way better looking group set than what the Claris was. And he's like, yeah, it's like the biggest problem we're having is like not enough people know that microshift is such a good option to go with.
They're so good. I feel like they're, you know, in terms of components for the people.
Yeah, and
it's like hitting it out of the park these days.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that group has been out for a little while. Like it was always marketed. It was never marketed. Like Microchip does no marketing. They're like, all right, guys, we're making a product.
Yeah, they don't have that
Microchip
money.
What's up? What's going on?
And they're like, well, we have this Instagram page. Should we use it? And they're like, I don't see any reason to use that Instagram page. But I think I certainly push a lot of people towards that bike. But I think because it is direct to consumer, shipping is certainly a consideration. And a lot of people will ask me, because I was such a big fan of the Diverge for so long, that the E5, like the entry level one, yeah, like that thing has always been comparable price wise when you take into consideration of shipping. And I'm always like, I don't know what you should get. Like, I don't know what you should get instead.
Does anybody know offhand what the new Diverge, like aluminum, like Sora like build or?
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think it was like, because it was like when I was selling it, it was 1,100 Canadian.
I'm gonna look it up.
So what's that?
Sorry,
$10 US.
I was always jealous. Like I was always jealous when someone would message me and be like, "Is this $780 worth it for this Diverge?" I think that's what it was for the red one or the black one. And I was like, man, that thing's like through axle. It will fit a 42. It doesn't have any swooping seat stays anymore. Like it was just like straight to the seat tube. No.
Okay, so I have.
Hey guys, we've got 100. We've got over 100 subscribers on ACN.
Hey! We just gotta get to 4,000 watch hours.
All right, guys. All right, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Rocks.
Cheers.
If you guys don't know what's going on, we're taking the show to its own YouTube channel, so it can be shared amongst the three of us.
This is just so we can all live in the same like house, like eventually or whatever.
Oh, we're all Well, I mean, we're also getting sick of Russ just raking in all the cash that we make.
Yeah, exactly.
All the dollars.
Yeah. So Eric will rake the backyard,
all his production
rake the front yard, and then we'll eventually be even. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how much that bike was, but it was certainly one of my like top picks forever. Like, I think through axle is a big consideration, and if you can get it. And I think most bikes you can now for that like $1,000 US mark. I think there is a sweet spot between $800 and $1,100.
So I have the Diverge base E5 pulled up. Just so this
How much?
is $1,100.
Oh,
and this is.
See, that's more in line with what I would remember.
But here's the big deal. Hence why I recommend the Revolt. This is Claris.
Right.
At $1,100.
Right.
So granted, you do get two more mounts on this bike. So you get the bottle fork mounts and the top two mounts compared to the Revolt, but you're also getting 8-speed versus what's Sora now is what, 10?
Yeah. I don't know. Is it? That's impressive.
I think so.
So Joe here, he mentions this would be my budget pick, and it's the Marin Nicasio Plus. And what I like about it is OEM. It's got WTB Horizon 650B, so nice and supple tires. It's got Microshift 1x, and the cassette in the rear is 11 to 46 in 9 speeds.
Oh yeah. You did that. So you did the review on that bike, right?
Yeah, and it ticked all my boxes in terms of gearing requirements and tires. It is a little bit on the portly side. I think it's just under 30 pounds, so 28 pounds thereabouts. Yeah. It doesn't have through axle. It's quick release, so that's kind of a bummer. And the brakes were okay, but in terms of a fun riding bike, it actually has a fairly like aggressive geometry, kind of short and tucked. So it wasn't like a boring bike to ride.
Right.
And had good gearing, good tires.
You know what?
Yeah,
Marin's line always surprises me every time I like, even their mountain bikes. I'm like, God, why am I not looking at these to buy one of these? Like,
Yeah, they're
Marin
good
and
value.
Breezer have solid bikes.
Yeah.
actually, more like, geez, why hasn't Marin sent me one of these yet?
Yeah.
True. Hey,
Hey man, we've got 107 subscribers on
if
the
anybody's
ACN
watching
channel.
this,
That's
we got
a
101 subscribers.
That's a micro nano quark
Yeah,
influencer.
influencing. Yeah, the amount of people we can get to buy stuff is just
Right.
amazing.
Yeah. It's at
Get
least
100 subscribers and 100 buyers.
Okay. So we've got the build up a Craigslist find suggestion. We've got sub $1,000 suggestion. I think once you get if your budget can go up to about 2,000 or 2,100, it opens up a world of really interesting options. Or do you think? What do you guys think? Or should people budget more? Like, what's the next like price point where it's diminishing returns?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think of like how much that actually is for me.
For me,
It's like a million Canadian.
It's just so much money.
You could buy a factory with that.
There it is. Yeah, he can make his own bike. Yeah, the Spin Dat spinner. That's going to be made.
Okay, $2,800. So, that's. I think I agree. I think that's probably. I think that's probably the sweet spot. I think that's going to be that would be where almost every bike I own would probably cost money-wise. Right. Well,
I mean that's where that's like the price point for like a complete Surleys, complete QBP bikes around there.
Yeah.
Like any of my bikes that I ride every day and that I pretty much have, like I would say that if you put the way that my Poseidon is built right now, like for sale to have to buy that new, it would probably be that price. And I'm like, well, there's nothing else I would change to this. Like, I don't, it's got.
I think it really depends on if you need to buy because you're using it more for road and gravel. I think that's a real big differentiating factor. For me, at that price point, I would go one buy if it's your gravel bike. Again, I'm going to prove this weekend to see if I can make my gravel bike with the one by chainring and the cassette that I have.
You can
work on road and have it be comfortable because like obviously there's bigger gaps in the gears. There's other things that you can factor in, but what is more important to you? Is the terrain less severe to where that cadence jump is better for you and you want to go 2x, or do you want the massive climbing gear? And if I only use 6 to 7 gears out of that cassette because I'm riding it road, is that fine? That's what I'm trying to find out. I think that's really where you have to define it. I think for me, as I've proven my recent gravel build, you can do a lot with the basic Apex SRAM components. Mm-hmm. You can upgrade it in time. I've shown how you can get, in Rust 2, how you can get more range of the rear derailleur if you need it. And then for me, it's like if you do that plus like upgrade just the front crankset, you can get pretty much the weight of force for a lot less money. So I think that is really where the sweet spot for that price point, where get an Apex 1x bike, do 2x in GRX or something like that if you really think you need the dual range and you really want to use it for road mostly, and then go from there. And then there's plenty of aftermarket options to upgrade, like Eric said, depending on what you actually end up liking, because you're maybe not sure initially.
Yeah.
Are you answering Alex right now?
No, I'm answering someone else who's like, where do I subscribe? Okay. Cool. Let's open up to YouTube comments or
there
questions.
It is.
I mean,
there
that's why
is.
you
we got 47 comments left. All right.
That's why these guys are in the live chat. So we're gonna open up to you guys. We've tried to break it down really simple and then make it really complicated.
And then reel it back in.
And reel it back in. That's what we do. Thesis, complicate, simplify. So if you guys have questions, you've got three gravel gurus. That's what
gurus. Yeah. That's such a kind way of putting it. You have such self-confidence, Ross. It's unbelievable.
You gotta sell it, man.
Can we get that on a t-shirt? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. 3 gravel gurus.
Okay, here's a question from Phil Snyder. Where did he go? Phil?
You gotta go like way up as far as like comments go, because that's what some great ones.
He had a question. This is not the one that's on the screen. Is are there any deal breakers when looking for a gravel bike? Are there things that gravel bike has to have personally for you? Otherwise, you won't buy it.
If it has a press fit bottom bracket, I probably wouldn't buy it now.
Okay, so you're more, and that's because just for people that don't know the.
Yeah, like I think the crankset options is gonna diminish quite a bit. There's lots for sale used everywhere right now, so you'll never run out of cranks. But like, if anything new comes out, like if like a different spider diameter comes out, which I'm sure it will because it keeps changing. Like I would say, especially if you're riding through dust, like you're just asking for creaky, messes. So yeah.
So not press fit, something threaded because
threaded,
creaks and just compatibility.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
Mounting options. I think that's gonna be the next thing.
Right.
Because if it's gonna be something like your dual bike, I think gravel bikes can be that. So if you have any interest in bike packing, have the mounts to go with it. If you don't, and you're just like, I just want to ride off road a little bit, and I'm only going to do day rides, then you don't need all that stuff. And there's plenty of bikes out there that don't have those. But know kind of what we've mentioned, your potential that you think you could be at, because it's better to have the mounts and never use them than to never have them.
Yeah, certainly. Having the zits is good.
Yeah, adventure nipples.
Adventure nipples, yeah.
Yeah,
or adventure titanium nipples, no big deal.
I'm gonna have to agree with Mike. I'd say that would be a deal breaker for me. Is when I get a bike, I want the ultimate in utility. I may not put a rack on it, but I just want that knowledge that I can.
Yeah.
And in particular, I tend to prefer steel forks, because I like to run some kind of small like rando rack or demi porteur, and most carbon forks you can't do that. So I tend to lean towards the bike with a steel fork option. Okay, this is a question that we get a lot. Do you need hydro brakes?
You do not need them.
No.
You don't need anything actually.
You can run. I mean, you don't need a bike.
Yeah. I mean, I like running, but you don't need them. No.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I feel like in mountain biking, it's a little, it's a little bit more of a necessity depending on your terrain. But if you're doing gravel road riding, like roads, not like some minus 20 crazy descent, then cable is good enough. And what's funny is I talked about the alt bar conversion I did with my polyvalent. Mm-hmm. I was able to do that at home because I didn't need all the fluids and all that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And we converted Laura's cutthroat to an alt bar, and I had to send it to the shop, and it's gone for 2 weeks. So if you like to mess around with your bike, cable's a little bit easier as an end user.
Yeah, I think cable with compressionless housing and a hydromechanical good brake caliper can be all you really need. It's the long, gritty descents that you're going to feel fatigue on, where you can still do it. It's just going to hurt a little bit more, but on those extreme ends.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you don't even need disc brakes.
Yeah, that's true. Rim brakes are actually really big disc brakes, says Jan.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And if Jan says it, gosh darn it, it's the truth.
It's the truth.
So Sean Gould here makes a comment. He mentions the Silka tire pressure calculator, and that is a big thing. Like it's one thing to advise you guys to get a bike with larger tires. That's definitely an important thing to do, but also to run them at proper pressures.
Appropriate pressure.
I feel like some people going from road, they're used to getting that 120 psi, and if you do that with 45 millimeter, 50 millimeter tire, the experience isn't going to be as pleasant. You're going to be wondering what's the big deal. You have to figure out what the appropriate pressure is.
Yeah.
So do you guys
know?
I
couldn't imagine trying to push 120 psi into a 50.
It would explode.
No,
it wouldn't though. I don't think it would, but it would.
No,
it would. It would. I've done it was a Compass tire that I thought was tubeless, but it wasn't at the time because it was like before like the ratings were the same, and I put 60 or 80 psi in the tire because I
And
thought that was a tubeless compatibility, and that was a tube compatibility, and it totally like just shot sealant right at me, and I was like, ah, and then like, oh yeah, it was not good, not good. It was right before a ride, and then I just like aired it down, like punched it, and then like did that, and then like kind of got it in there, and then ran like a stupid climbing route at like 35 psi. It was terrible, but you know.
Yeah. So here's a question from Stuart: does compressionless? I'm going to assume he's talking about housing. Make a big difference?
Yes, 100%.
I would say yes, 100%.
100%. Yeah.
That would
I've
say
never
even,
used it.
I would say even between compressionless housing, there are some that are better than others.
Yeah.
You know, you have is it the Win
Jaguar?
R1s?
Yeah, I have the Win R1s. I've run the Jaguar Elite housing, which is like that eye-linked little segment housing.
Mm-hmm.
If your frame runs full housing, you cannot run that because they don't give you enough.
Right.
But if it's at least like goes into the frame, is cable, and then goes out of the frame, you can run it. But that's essentially what it's kind of meant for as far as how many links they give you. But seriously, game changer. Like my Apex stuff ran better than my buddy's Shrem Force with housing, the same length, but like it shifts so good. It's so crisp. It's really worth it. It's expensive. It really is. Are there alternatives? Yes. Are they all like equal? No.
Yeah.
But theirs is quality no matter what you get. It's worth getting. I tell people if they want to go Di2 or ETAP, at least buy that first and then decide, because it makes the shift quality or braking either in rim or hydromechanical so much better. It's better to spend, even if it's at full tilt, $160 to do that than potentially $1,000 for Di2. I don't know, so it's worth it just to try it out because it's going to make any bike feel better.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've got the Yokozuna Ultimos, which are similar brakes that you have, and I swapped a drivetrain and used non-compressionless housing, and they suck now. I mean, they're like terrible. Before I could brake from the hoods and lock up the wheel, just like no problem, and now I have to get into the drops and white knuckle it.
It's called the hope and a prayer, and that's
right.
braking is called. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've never used a nicer like cable than probably like bulk Shimano cable. So
you should try it.
I mean, I was after we did a few of these live streams, and I was kind of like for the Grouch, like the Rockhopper build, I was just like I think it would be cool if this thing has just like cable on it that's more expensive than the bike was. So I was like looking up how much it was, and I thought it was fairly reasonable. And I think when I decide to put the drivetrain on it, I will order like a couple sets to put on that thing. Especially because I know everyone will be like, oh, I thought this was a budget build. And I'll be like, I never said it was going to be a budget.
That would be an interesting experiment, like kind of mediocre to crappy brakes, but with really nice housing.
And just be like, oh, wow, these woke these up. Like,
I think like it's going to be something where you probably notice the most difference on your Crux. Because I used to have the same Crux you had. I had an S-Works version. The red one you have, Eric?
Yeah, but that thing's hydro.
Well, no, I know. Well, I'm saying I had the hydromechanical at the time when I had that bike.
Right.
It really made a difference. Where I think for Rockhopper, it's going to be like, oh yeah, like
it's gonna be sick.
It's also gonna be like, oh well, it breaks great, but the fork bends in half. Like it's gonna, like that.
I'm okay with that.
It stops because the fork stops, and then I go. Yeah, like
oh shit.
Yeah.
Those prices are USD for those cables.
Oh yeah.
So,
there's not Canadian $80. Yeah.
That'd be like 50 cents or something, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, what about moving a vintage 26er to 650B with Canties? Doable with enough money and welding.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think
I don't know where the rim would land. I feel like
neither do I.
it
But
might work with some brakes. I don't know.
no, Paul has those adjustable.
V brakes, yes.
Right. So
Yes.
those would work.
Okay.
Yes, they will.
But
you have to have
I
a certain lever for that. Like,
right. Which I believe they make, but I don't know who makes a rim that's rim brake that's also modernly wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's where-
Velocity would.
Yeah.
Velocity
Probably,
would.
okay.
Like, you could get the Velocity cliffhanger and build wheels with that, but that's like, I don't know, man. That's
a lot to do.
that's a lot of money
to like do a retro bike. Yeah.
to do that, right? Like, doable, yes.
Yeah.
So expensive.
Smart, no, but like join the YouTube community. That's what we all do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eric Hubble here. Can you all recommend a good seat tube / top tube bag? I want something not at the handlebar end of things.
Yeah.
So I think I know what Mike's gonna say, but
I'm gonna go get mine. Hang on.
Right.
I'll be right back.
yeah.
Take me
Eric,
off screen.
do you use top tube bags, or do you just put everything in the jersey pocket?
Jersey pocket guy. But I actually, like, when I did, like, on my super, super long rides, I have a top tube bag, but I made mine.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what it, like, I don't know what it was about seeing all these, like, cool bags that came out that I was like, I can make that. And, like, I was the epitome of, you could buy it for $100 or you can buy $300 of material and make a really shitty version of one.
A month later.
Yeah. So,
But in Canadian money, that's like a steal. Like,
yeah. So, I'd like,
Yeah.
I would like to own probably, like, I really like Porcelain Rocket's work, and he's from Calgary. So when I look at his website, I actually understand what he's asking for his stuff.
All right, Mike, what do you got there?
Okay, so I have my Kai Venture top tube bag.
I
So
love
this
that
one
spatter
is-
pattern.
Yeah, it does.
Oh
look
yeah,
good.
no, this is killer. So this, yeah, so they will do a bolt-on style, which is I need for my new frame. But this one is more universal because obviously it's got the two straps, it's got the front strap. The cool thing is with the opposite side, I had him do a mesh vent, so it sticks into here. So when I shove like gel packets or whatever, I can like kind of shove them in the back so they're out of the way. And then I have like a
Oh, a secret thing for your weed.
Oh well, I mean, it's usually for credit cards and ID, but sure, whatever you want. And then, you have.
Canada, weed is money, also. So
I've watched too much Trailer Park Boys.
It's a weird place here.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. So then I have the here. This is for my bong, and then the weed. Yeah. So that's where that goes. But no, that's the thing is like all his stuff is all to order. So. Like I said before, if you're slow, you got to look good. So this all matches all my bikes. They're great. They're in California. Russ, you met them at Seattle, and I met them either right before or right after you did because I was like, oh my God, your bags look so cool. That looked great on my road bike. And they're like, oh, we make these bags. So that was really cool. But no, they do awesome stuff. And honestly, this is like for a Saturday. Because how much road riding we're doing, I'm like, I can fit all my food in this and my little, my stick gimbal off my pocket. So it works out. Yeah.
A very small burrito.
Yeah.
Burrito.
Or
a prepackaged burrito.
Or a diagonally cut PB&J or a sandwich. Yeah.
That's some pro tips, guys.
Pro
that's
tips.
why,
Like,
that's why you watch ACN.
That's it right there. Right there. That's a diagonal cut PB&J or
subscribe
sandwich.
for more recipes.
That's what I'll put. That's what I'll put on our channel. No big deal. Yeah.
My favorite top two bag is the I forget the specific name, but it's a Maglock by Revelate. And what I like about it is because it uses a magnet, and I like that because that's where I put my action cams when I film. So it's super easy to just flip that open, and if it have to stash it right away because of traffic or rain. Just put it in there, slap it down, and it works pretty good. I did have to modify it a little bit just because top 2 bags in my experience tend to sway
they
a
flop.
bit. Yeah. So I replaced the webbing strap that goes around the steer tube with elastic cordage, and that just keeps tension on there and it keeps it from flopping around. So let's see. We'll look at one more question. Lots of laughs. Yeah, ACN has 145 subscribers.
So bad.
Baby.
There's literally no channel that has ever grown as fast as a channel that has no videos on it.
YouTube, where are we at? YouTube, hello, Google money, where are we at?
Yeah. Casey Neistat's just he's quaking in his boots.
Got nothing on us. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we should. I mean, we're at our hour and a half mark. We'll take it home from here. So thank you everyone for watching this episode of ACN. Again, if you missed out in the very beginning, we've got a fancy new logo up by Mike's head.
Oh, sorry. Wait. There we go.
There you go.
Right here. Yeah.
And the show in general has a new YouTube channel where we're going to give it its own home so we can each contribute content and make it more of a communal thing than living constantly on my channel and me breaking the live streams every time I do it. So definitely subscribe. The link is in the description below. And hope you guys enjoyed this content. Any last words, guys?
I like.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mark Johnson.
Sean's game was. Hang on, it's a drinking game. One shot every new subscriber on ACN subscriber. Yep, that's it. That's it. All right, we're doing it.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So until next week, keep the supple side down.
Down.